Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome to our Words Are Not Enough live stream. This is a little, off the cuff kind of thing here, so it's going to be very relaxed. But we wanted to take a chance and, take a moment and discuss the recent Bond news that has broke. But before I do that, I am Griffin 008 Schiller. As always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Mr. Brody 00 whatever Saravelli. So Brody, say hello to everyone. He's kind of out there. He's in a field right now. What is going on?
Oh, I was just saying, I'm so distraught about the news that I've fled into the wilderness.
Yeah,
just like taking refuge. That, and also I am in the process of moving, so I'm staying with people, and it's as loud as it is out here. It's much louder in there. So yeah,
the air conditioning, the dogs, the
people,
there's people. Right,
yeah.
right. all that good stuff. So we got a little bit of disheartening news today, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Oh, a little bit. Yeah. Pretty real punch in the gut, because I saw the that ad that Amiga did with Daniel Craig.
Oh, and then, the diving watch. Oh my God, it was.
Yeah, I saw that, and then literally like 15 minutes later, I see that
this news.
The news, yeah,
the news that we are going to get to in a second.
And so it was all pretty upsetting. But
yeah, no, I was really I guess I was a little surprised as well when I when you sent me stuff like that. So I'm gonna read to you all the official statement from the James Bond, the official James Bond Twitter account. They posted on Facebook. It is their official statement regarding the departure of director Danny Boyle. If you're looking at the thumbnail, you're looking at the title of the video, Danny Boyle has left the project. So Michael G. Wilson, Barbara Broccoli, and Daniel Craig announced that due to creative differences, which seems to be the problem whenever any departure goes down,
pretty much.
Danny Boyle has decided to no longer direct Bond 25. So Brody, I'm going to throw it to you real quick. I want to get your thoughts on this announcement. And then, what it kind of signifies going forward, I guess.
Well, it sucks. It's terrible news. Danny Boyle's I was really looking forward to Danny Boyle's take. I was really excited that he and John Hodge were like really into their vision. I was really keen that all the producers seemed into their vision, at least at the time. Yeah, so this sucks. This is and it sucks because we're so close to production, going into production. So, I feel like it has to be delayed now, because even if you were to get another director tomorrow, they have to restart pre-production. You know what I mean? Unless they just throw them in the middle of pre-production, which like something like The Hobbit, which would be terrible. So I would rather they delayed it than do that. But I don't want it to be delayed at all. I really wanted to see Danny Boyle's vision, and creative differences is such an annoying sort of reason to have to leave a project, because it's so bullshit, really.
Yeah.
But I'm curious what the creative differences were, because I feel like they'd already decided on a script and they'd already decided on a vision. So it must have been something that came up that was almost tangential to the script itself, because
that's what we were talking about earlier,
wasn't it? Wasn't his contract conditional on them liking the script,
right? Which it seems like they did, because Hodge had turned in a final draft, I believe, maybe not like a finalized draft, but a draft of the full film, and they seemed to be really on board with it, so they knew what they were getting. But maybe Boyle went in afterwards and was like, no, I want to take it this direction a little bit further here. And you brought up the whole Russian thing. The fact that maybe he was getting a little too political and they were trying to shy away from that. And I mean, we could point to, allegories in the past where Bond has shied away from being, maybe not shied away, but they've tried to avoid, I guess, conflict, I guess.
I mean, the franchise is inherently political, because you're talking about,
of course, international spies and all that stuff.
Espionage and all that kind of thing. And but there are instances where the franchise has been sort of we were talking about. I mentioned that they originally, for Tomorrow Never Dies, they wanted to do something about the exchange between China and England. with Hong Kong, and they ended up just shying away from that and doing a more conventional sort of Bond story, like a supervillain story. And then I mean, this has happened in the past though. Like the original novels for like the first couple of Bond, like the first couple of movies that were adapted into first couple of novels that were adapted into movies rather. The villain was Smersh, like because Spectre in the books didn't come around until like late, like the last couple of books, essentially. And originally it was just Smersh. Smersh was like a branch of the Soviet like government, and they were Russians. And then when they were making it, they said, okay, well, we don't want to offend anyone, so we're going to make Smersh Spectre. We're just going to use Spectre and transplant him into these stories, which ended up becoming like, you know, this iconic thing. But it was... It started off as sort of like a move to avoid being too political about the Cold War that was very, very heightened at the time. Like that was Dr. No was being made during the Cuban Missile Crisis, so things were pretty tense. But and they've done things like that before. But it would really suck if that was the reason why this film was like changing hands, because I think I've said this on the show before. I think Bond needs to be political in one regard or another. I think the best Bond films have come out of sort of taking real world events and then putting them into like ripping from a headline and putting it into the story. So you look at like things like, I really love License to Kill. License to Kill's very 80s, like the drug war, that kind of thing. But even things like GoldenEye took the end of the Cold War and just made that the central thesis of the story, and made that, and it sort of extrapolated that into like, oh, well, where does Bond fit into this post-Cold War world? And, you know, it took a political like sort of moment in time and used it as an excuse to reflect on Bond as a character, which is really, really interesting storytelling. And I thought, especially with like Brexit and all that happening like since Spectre came out, it's the perfect time to sort of, well, where does Bond fit into the world now that you've got the Russians are sort of being nefarious again? Now you've got like the Britain's leaving the European Union, like all this sort of thing. Where does Bond fit into that geopolitical landscape? You've got like Trump in the White House in America, like all these things, neo-Nazis, this kind of thing. Where does Bond fit into that? And it was a perfect opportunity. And I thought when they were like hiring like these actors to play Russians, I'm like, oh, they're gonna at least touch on some of these things, which is really cool. But
which they may still. I mean, we really have no idea.
Right.
All we know is that he left. It was due to creative differences. The thing that I find interesting about that statement is that they include Daniel Craig's name in there. Now, why would they include Craig's name unless he had a say in the departure of Danny Boyle? Obviously, at least in my mind, it seems that he was not 100% on board with the direction Boyle was taking his character for his final outing. Because I mean, Craig has stated multiple times he wants to go out on a bang. He wants to basically best finale for his character that he possibly can. So I'm under the assumption that Craig was a contributing factor in
100%,
Boyle ultimately, departing, which is unfortunate because I thought he was really keen to work with him. But obviously, I guess it just didn't really pan out.
Yeah, I think with the interesting thing with that, well, because Daniel Craig kind of got more involved in like production, especially with Spectre. He was like accredited as a producer as well, which is telling of like his sort of involvement behind the scenes. And we've heard he's been probably the most involved behind the scenes Bond ever. Like he was one of the main factors that like led to Sam Mendes being hired in the first place with Skyfall, and getting him back for Spectre and all these sort of things. So he's been very, very involved in the franchise, more so than actors in the past.
Yeah.
So it definitely would make sense that he would have a say in whether or not the director stays or leaves. More so than like, say, like Timothy Dalton probably got a say in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Or even Pierce Brosnan, like because that was the same. Because we won't count the Cubby years because Cubby was kind of a different producer. But yeah, I don't know. It is really interesting that his name was credited.
Right.
I think. I don't know. I heard a lot of people talking about this, and we'll probably get to this when we talk more about like replacements.
We want that. Yeah.
But I have heard a lot of people like sort of I read on Twitter that people are speculating that someone like Christopher McQuarrie could be taking over, and which has led people to speculate that maybe this was like a reaction to Fallout doing so well.
I don't think that's even remotely true. It just that doesn't, that from a studio point of view, why would they want to go backwards to go forwards? They've already spent so much time in production. Why would they want to,
of course,
put in a new script, hire a new director? They already had a vision. It just clearly wasn't aligned with Boyle and Eon and co. We're not aligned with where they wanted to take the story. But that brings up a good point. So moving on to
actually, one more thing I was going to say about that actually is that well, on top of that, you've also got like the whole distribution thing going on. I can't remember, was Danny Boyle hired before or after the whole like US Universal distribution thing was like sealed?
I think it all happened around the same time, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, yeah.
I think the rights went to Annapurna and Universal, and then maybe Boyle got hired on.
I feel like we heard about Annapurna first.
If you guys are watching this live, or if you're watching it on the replay, let us know in the comments section. Don't remember that detail, but
yeah, because that would be interesting if it was like they hired him, and then the rights, like the distribution rights, went to some studios, and then like say Universal says, we're not too happy with this or this or this. Like in our market, this isn't going to play well. Change that.
Sure.
And because you've got two different studios doing distribution in different regions, right? So let's say Annapurna, who was on board first for domestic distribution. I'm assuming when they say domestic, they mean like the United Kingdom, but I don't know.
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, Universal would distribute it in the United States.
Like worldwide,
that's beside the point. But yeah.
Well, yeah, but you could have like, if let's like go back to the politics thing for a second. You've got like, oh, we're gonna do a big story about Russians, whatever, and then and Annapurna is like, oh great, we love this idea, and then Universal comes on board and is like, we don't really want to touch that. That's a bit of a touchy subject in America right now, and we want, we don't want to upset that market. You know what I mean? Like it could be just like this, a studio stepping in and saying, we didn't sign up for that when we, got on board with this, which would be another shame. That would be like, I think there's the bottom line of the story is that there's no like, I don't think
there's no good way to spin it. Yeah. And we're never going to know why until like years down the road. But,
unless Danny Boyle had like the worst idea ever, and it was a legit like sort of
imagine?
Like maybe it could turn out like remember that Michelle McLaren thing for Wonder Woman where she's like, oh, I'm gonna have like a tiger sidekick for Wonder Woman.
Oh my god!
And then Warner Brothers was like, we don't want that, and then they got Patty Jenkins. And it turned out great. So it could be, fingers crossed, it's a situation like that, but we don't have enough information to really go on a limb like that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna head over to the chat here and see what some people are saying. Bond investigates Trump-Russian collusion type of politicalness. That's funny. And then
get Felix involved. That'd be good.
Right. Boyle was trying to. I like this one. Boyle was trying to do a Bond flashback movie, just like Slumdog, and Craig didn't want to do the Bollywood dance. Oh my gosh. Well, all
maybe he wanted Bond to do hard drugs like Trainspotting or something.
That's get into the deep ground roots of Britain, right? That's really what it was all about. He was basically trying to. He was an excuse to make Trainspotting 3, but under
he was making T3,
yeah, under the. Oh my god, gave me flashbacks to fucking Terminator 3.
A great film. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes. But all right, so let's move on to the second part of this. So the title of the video, and let's start with the part that we really wanted to discuss. So who is going to be Boyle's replacement? That's the big question now. That's the thing that everyone's been circulating around Twitter. Justin Kroll, who works with Variety, actually put out a tweet saying that there are rumors. There's not really a lot of weight to them. There's not really any fact to them, but there are rumors circulating that they may be looking at Mission Impossible Fallout director Christopher McQuarrie to take over the reins. I would be curious to see that. I don't want to see it for Bond 25, mainly because I don't want you said it best to me. We don't want Bond stealing from Mission Impossible. We want them to kind of do their own things, and if they happen to kind of bounce off of each other, that's the way it goes. But just because McQuarrie has had the success in the spy film genre doing Mission Impossible does not mean we should automatically just throw him into Bond. Now, granted, I think he'd do a bang up job. I also think he wants to do other original stuff. And if he's going to do, well, and this branches out into a whole other things, are they going to keep the John Hodge script? If they bring someone like McQuarrie on, naturally he's going to want to write his own script.
And if they did bring him on, cool. I would want him to. Yes, absolutely, that's like I wouldn't want him working with someone else's script. I wouldn't want any. That's the thing, though. As great as we've heard his script is, I almost don't want a director coming on and just being a gun for hire on someone else's script that they really don't have any. Like, especially if you're going to go for an auteur, you know what I mean? If you're going to go for like a director, don't just like hand him a script and say, go for it, like make this work. Because I feel like that's how you get really like sort of unambitious filmmaking. And that's just like that's not even a Bond thing. That's just a whole like general filmmaking philosophy.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and like with Christopher McQuarrie, I was telling you, I don't really want Bond to be chasing Mission Impossible. I don't want him to be, because. And I think I said this to you when I watched Fallout like the second time. I was like, it's really interesting how much like Bond this is. Like, if Rogue Nation was kind of the old school kind of Bond aesthetic going on, like more fun, not camp, but you know what I mean, like more lighthearted.
Classic spy film,
yeah. Fallout kind of went more serious, more sort of character study kind of direction with it, which is kind of where Bond has been heading with like the Sam Mendes films, right? Like,
absolutely. I mean, that's exactly what Skyfall is.
Yeah, Fallout owed a lot to the Sam Mendes films in that respect, and it's really interesting to see that like it was taking from that, and it'd be like the snake eating itself if then Bond was like, we're gonna get Christopher McQuarrie to do his impersonation of Sam Mendes doing a Bond film, and it's like, who's doing an impersonation of Christopher Nolan? And it's just like, this is too much. The action would be incredible. That would be like a given. He would definitely bring those chops on board. But I don't know. I don't know. It would be cool. It might put a good word in for Henry Cavill, but
that's the thing. I'd be so. See, I look at it from two ways. I want McQuarrie to tackle a Bond film later down the road. I also want Nolan to do Bond 26, and I also want Henry Cavill to be James Bond. And for all those things to happen, I don't think either of those guys should really be involved with Bond 25. I mean,
people keep talking about Christopher Nolan, but he's not going to do it, guys.
No, absolutely.
He's not going to do it.
This is the thing.
Nobody doesn't want to do a Bond film. He does, and I get why there's rumors, because he does. He has expressed interest in doing a Bond film. It's not happening anytime in the next film. You know what I mean? He said repeatedly, if he does it, he wants a fresh slate. You know what I mean? And
that's the thing. And I don't think people understand this. Every time. I mean, ever since the man has really made Inception, every time they're like, oh, we're getting ready to make the new Bond film, boom, Christopher Nolan. I mean, I'm even guilty of this as well, because I really want him to tackle a Bond film, and I mean that really has to do with how much of a fan of the franchise he is. If he wasn't as big of a fan of the franchise and had this reverence for it, I probably wouldn't be as gung-ho about it. But granted, it is Christopher Nolan, and the man, everything the man touches is gold. But but here's the thing, like, if Nolan's going to do a Bond film, he's going to want complete creative control, because that's just who he is. That's the kind of filmmaker he is. So he's not going to want, the remnants of the Craig era. He's going to want the first entry of a new Bond. He's going to want to be able to tell the story.
He said that is the thing.
Exactly.
So it's not even, we're not even speculating. It's just like, he has said, if I do a Bond film, which I do want to do, I would want to do like, complete clean slate. And that's fair. Let him do that. He's earned the notoriety at this point to get his way on that.
Absolutely. And I think eventually it will happen. We just have to be patient. I think it's only inevitable, given his, love of the franchise, that he will tackle one. But it's, it's not going to be for 25. So I think we just need to take his name completely out of the conversation. As incredible as it would be to see a Nolan Bond film, it's not going to happen for a while. So given that, and given how we feel about the McQuarrie things, Brody, I'm going to defer to you first. Who do you want to direct Bond 25, and who do you think is the most likely to get the job?
That's hard. That's a hard question.
I know, but it's the question. You can feel free to throw multiple names out there. I only ask that you don't throw out Martin Campbell, because that's going to be the one that I go back to.
Fair enough. That's fine. I will leave him on the table. Okay. This is hard because there's two different directions I would want to see this go in, right? There's stick with the auteurs and go for someone like Denis Villeneuve, who we've talked about him like ad nauseum on this channel, but he did express interest in doing it. It's just his schedule doesn't really work with it. But I'd love to see them like petition him some more. Now that they've got like Universal, but they're back and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know how likely that is, just given his schedule, but it would be great. I would love to see him do one.
Like the whole Dune thing is going to take up basically all of his time.
Well, no, exactly, yeah, and that's the thing. But I would love to see him do it. The other option for me is you just go like I've said this on the channel before too. You go the journeyman route, and you just get a competent director who does really good, like a second unit director who does action really well, and you just say, okay, focus on stunts. We'll give you a script and just go with it. You know what I mean? Which is going to lead into your answer, I feel. But yeah, so I mean, as when it comes to specifics, I mentioned, I threw around before. I wouldn't mind if like Steven Soderbergh gave it a go.
You know, that's really funny because I saw a tweet earlier that had like Steven Soderbergh with like a bottle of like whiskey or something in a camera. And it's like Steven Soderbergh's new Bond 25 is already on iTunes, and I was like, oh my god,
that's hilarious. Oh my god. But yeah, no, I don't know. I just sort of wouldn't mind seeing. Oh, sorry, I'm just adjusting the camera. It's getting dark again. But yeah, no, I just wouldn't mind seeing either. Yeah, just go for broke on someone like Villeneuve, or just get someone like I'm not saying like get like any action director, because like someone like Christopher McQuarrie, I would consider like a journeyman in that he is
really he's a man won an Oscar for The Usual Suspects.
Oh, he's a phenomenal writer, and that's the thing. He's a really like acclaimed writer, but as a director, he's not like, you know what I mean? You know, he's not like Christopher Nolan, you know, in terms of his direction.
Not
that. Yeah, I mean, you know, he's no one of particular note yet. He's only like just started his career anyway, so I wouldn't want to like throw shit at him. But he started his directing career, I should say. But like that's what I mean when I say journeyman. I just mean someone who's like very adept at filmmaking, doesn't like have a ton of like this is a Tarantino film or this is a Kubrick film. You know what I mean? Not that Stanley Kubrick could do one if he wanted to, because he's dead. If you didn't know that, you heard it here first. Yeah. But yeah, no. So those are my two thoughts on it, which pretty much encompasses all directors. So it's really a non-answer. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have any specific names really. I just want to be surprised. I was really surprised with Danny Boyle, and I was super happy with being surprised.
Yeah, I was too. That's the thing. I want them to. He's not an obvious choice, and he's a well-known director in film circles, but to the general public, not as well known. So I mean, a director like that is like the perfect choice, I think. For me personally, though, and actually, before we get to my choices, let's head on over to the chat and see what some people are saying. So
it's getting really dark on Brody's screen.
It is because the sun's going down.
Funny that, right?
So we've got Mission Impossible is the Fast and Furious of the spy genre. No one should try to recreate it because it was more of an accident than it works. Than a formula. That's an interesting take.
Throwing some shade at Mission Impossible.
Nolan's Bond would be Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I'd go with Tom Hardy, but not a bad choice there.
That'd be really funny though.
Right. Scott Sullivan says Bond 26, 27, 28 should be a Tom Hardy, Christopher Nolan trilogy. That is the dream. Unfortunately, I don't think it'll happen because
that'd be interesting.
And as I said in the chat, I think that Tom Hardy's already past that age, and he was my top choice for the longest time, but unfortunately,
he got the Pierce Brosnan stamp of approval. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I think
not that means anything because I don't think he has any say in that. But
yeah, and if Bond 25 was not going to have Craig, I would say Hardy, but since it is, I think he's a little on the older side. But still, that would be an incredible dream. Robert Rodriguez to direct Danny Trejo as Bond. Man, these are some wild picks, dude. Very interesting. So keep letting us know in the live chat who your picks are to direct Bond 25.
Actually, I have
this on the replay. Leave it in the comment section. Go ahead, Brody.
There was one other thing I was going to say that I thought would be interesting. I was talking to someone about this. I was talking to my friend before, and I don't think this is going to happen, but you could hypothetically say, okay, Bond 25 fell through. This is the end of the Craig films, and we're just gonna go with a different director, right? No, I'm not saying they should.
Yeah,
that would be suck. But that's what they did to Pierce Brosnan, so it's not like unprecedented. I don't think they'll do that. I think they have a much closer working relationship with. I'm becoming like a shadow here.
Yeah, you are.
But they have a much closer working relationship with Daniel Craig than they did with Pierce Brosnan in terms of like collaboration. So I don't think that's going to happen. But that could happen. They could just say, okay, we're getting Christopher McQuarrie, bring on, or we're getting Nolan or something. Bring on, Henry Cavill and just go make your film.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So. Or anyone. I'm not just saying Henry Cavill, but
sure,
Henry Cavill.
I mean, we've already made it very clear that he is our number one choice for the next Bond. But
he'd be great
for sure. So so moving on to who I think.
Oh yeah,
I have three. I actually tweeted this out earlier today, but I have three choices. One of which I hope really gets it. We'll see what happens, but I mean, I think we talked about him potentially wanting to come back for another one in earlier episode, like months ago or something. So who knows? It's very possible. But the three names I threw out there are Martin Campbell, who has directed two of the best Bond films to date, GoldenEye and Casino Royale.
Yep.
Yes, he directed Green Lantern, but we don't hold that against him because he's made a lot of other phenomenal films, and he really just gets the Bond universe. He
made what was that Mel Gibson one he made of like Into Darkness or something like that?
Edge of Darkness.
Edge of Darkness.
Yeah.
Into Darkness is Star Trek, but
that is Star Trek.
Continue.
But anyways, yeah. So, what's his name? Martin Campbell. I know. Jan Demange, who is directed to White Boy Rick, and also was the front runner for a long time. So we were led to believe after he gave a pitch that blew the boardroom away. It blew them away so much that they landed at the feet of Danny Boyle, and now they're no longer there. So maybe they'll come back to Jan Demange. I also just think he has a great style to him. He's not like a well-known director, so this might be a great opportunity for him to kind of make his way up the ladder and become more well-known. I think he's definitely going to become more well-known with a film like White Boy Rick, which looks great. And on top of that, he also did the film, what is it called? 71 or something like that?
Yeah, 71. Yeah.
Right, which was also fantastic movie. So the guy clearly has a knack for storytelling. I like his shooting style. I'm a big fan of the fact that he uses film, so that's always good. And yeah, all around, I think it would be just like a great opportunity for someone new to come into the franchise, leave their mark. They might not be as well known as, say, like a Danny Boyle, but they could definitely contribute. And especially if we're led to believe that pitch really did blow them away, which I'm still holding on to that it did.
I don't think it did. I honestly feel like that was just a rumor at this point.
You don't think it did, dude? I
don't think he had a pitch. I think that was all rumor. I think the Jan Demange thing.
Regardless, Jan Demange is still a choice for me. And then my last choice, and it's very obvious because the man is incredibly inspired by Bond. You can look at basically every single one of his films.
I should have said this. I was going to say this. You go ahead.
Brad Bird.
Yeah. Brad Bird.
He's the obvious choice. I don't know whether I want him to direct this or one in the future, but
this one, I would love it.
It would be a really cool note to go out on. I don't know if he'd do it because it's too similar to what he's been doing with the Incredibles films. And I feel like maybe he wants to try something different, or maybe he'll be working on Incredibles 3. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think the style, the aesthetic, the way he builds worlds in this kind of neo-futuristic way. Now, I mean, granted, that's not what Bond is, but he can take that mentality, the classic spy film
he did Ghost Protocol, and that was
right.
He definitely proved himself to be adept with like the genre, and even he did little like flourishes that we hadn't really seen in, like, he put little Bondian flourishes into Ghost Protocol that we hadn't really seen in previous Mission Impossible films. Like, I just remember the opening scene where the guy's running and he jumps off the building and throws the thing down, and the big parachute bed, the big inflatable bed thing catches his fall. That felt very Bond, and just like in the implementation of the gadgets. So
that would be really cool to see that brought back for Craig's last outing, because they've been kind of like slowly working in the gadgets more. And then, boom, the last one, you throw in like Brad Bird and his reverence for classic spy films. I think Match Made in Heaven, I'm still just kind of torn whether I want him to do 25 or maybe like 27 or something down the road. I think he's another one where it's like inevitably he's going to tackle a Bond film. It's just a matter of when.
Isn't this great? We've got directors for every Bond film for the next 10 years, except for 25.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God. Also, there's a tweet that our friend Trey just put on the thread.
Oh, beautiful.
Michael Bay and Mark Wahlberg for the new Bond.
Well, I think you can give up right now, because Michael Bay and Mark Wahlberg have just been announced that they're attached to the project, and they're moving on full speed ahead, and the film's going to
maybe Peter Berg if Michael Bay is not available.
Right? No. Peter Berg's going to produce, and the film is going to release this December, limited, with a full release in January for Oscars.
Oh my God!
No, but to kind of put a cap on who I think should direct it, Martin Campbell is my ultimate choice, simply because I feel like that's the kind of director you need to finish out an era. And especially since he kicked off the Craig era, he already has in mind what Eon, Barbara Broccoli, Michael G. Wilson, what they want, because I mean, he's the director who started it off, and they've kind of, for the most part, continued on that trend. Even through Spectre. I mean, it's been dark, it's been gritty, it's been more character driven. We've gotten to know the character of James Bond more than we ever have, I would argue. And it also would be very poetic for him to kind of conclude the arc that he started. So I love that whole thought process. I think he'd be able to come in, do a solid job. And on top of that, like I mentioned, he's done 2 of the best Bond films ever made, GoldenEye and Casino Royale. Why would you not want this guy to tackle like Craig's final outing? And who knows, maybe him and Craig could work really well together to, give the character what Craig wants, yet also service the story in a fulfilling way. So I don't know, and also, like I mentioned, when we were talking about this on a podcast way back, he expressed interest in maybe coming back for a Bond film should they want him to. So he's definitely, still in their thoughts and whatnot. But overall,
I think with Martin Campbell, though, I think it would depend on the script for him. I feel like he got really lucky in that, he got really lucky in that GoldenEye and Casino Royale are both like really good scripts. And because you could see, he seems to be, like, I think I've mentioned this when we talked about it last, he seems to be the kind of director, as most like sort of journeymen are, who just get the material and then the material they make is as good as the material they're given. Essentially. So he got 2 really phenomenal scripts, and so they made 2 really phenomenal movies. And that isn't discrediting the fact that, like, they're obviously good film. He's obviously a really good filmmaker on his own, on his own merits. Like, I'm sure the card scenes as written could have been shot in a completely disastrous way for Casino Royale, but he directed it in such a way that made it very compelling. So that, not to give him no credit, but I think you look at things like Green Lantern. You look at things. I don't think Edge of Darkness was that bad, but it wasn't like
it's very much like a B movie. Yeah,
and so I think his work is very determinant on like the material he's given. So if they work with Hodges' script with him, that sounds great. I mean, we're assuming the Hodges script is great, but I'm just gonna keep telling myself that it was.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But yeah, no. So I think in that circumstance, I could be really into it. Or you get someone like a really good writer like Paul Haggis, someone like that.
Get him in there. Maybe they bring back Purvis and Wade. Who knows? But
oh, please don't bring back Purvis and Wade.
Right. We don't necessarily want that. But anyways, over in the chat, people are saying, what do we got? Guy Ritchie and Edgar Wright.
Interesting. I feel like Guy Ritchie's too stylized for me.
Guy Ritchie falls into the same category as Matthew Vaughn for me, where he'd be really cool, but maybe in like an Elsewhere universe. You know?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he's got a very it's very in your face, his style. I think it'd be really interesting to see because I think someone like you just said his name, Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
He would be really interesting because he's got an in-your-face style as well, but it's not as like sort of overly stylized as someone like the latter two that we just mentioned. Yeah. So I would be curious. I think after watching Baby Driver, I remember saying it'd be interesting to see what he could do. He seems to be he's a cinephile, so he's just very influenced by all of cinema. So it'd be really sort of cool to see what he could do, but he wouldn't be at the top of my list, at least not yet. I don't know if he again, like he's a director that I love. So if he came out and said, I have a great pitch for a Bond film, I'd be like, go for it.
Then sure. If he had a great, plan or whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, plus, like, I just think that he's, a competent enough director. He could throw in his style a little bit, and then maybe some other stuff. But yeah,
it'd be like JJ taking over Star Wars, where like he sort of subdued some of his more like sort of eccentric flourishes to sort of fit the tone of the universe that he was working in.
Yeah.
So.
Going back over to the live chat. Oh, what's up, Zach? How's it going, man? We have Joe Wright, interesting. And Owen says David Ayer for Bond 25.
David Ayer. Oh,
wait, but not just David Ayer. It's
good.
David Ayer's film, but it's going to be edited by a trailer house company. That's what's gonna happen. Yeah.
Excellent. Yes. Done. Deal.
Right.
But only if Warner Brothers produces just so does only have really good studio oversight.
Yes, that's the only case. That's
my one condition.
Yes. But what do you think of Joe Wright? That's an interesting choice.
That is an interesting choice, actually. I hadn't actually considered him, but he's like. Yeah, it should be kind of cool. He's very British in like. I mean, that's like a really lame reason to pick someone, but like his.
But it's true. I mean,
I'm thinking of what's the name of the last film he did? Fuck.
Pan.
No, not that one.
Fucking abysmal. That's the only reason why.
Pan was terrible. I can't think of it. There's one film I remember him watching. I remember watching from him, and I was like, oh yeah, he's got a very like sort of his sensibilities are very sort of.
Are you talking about
in line with? I think I'm thinking of Atonement. I can't remember what I'm thinking of. I'm just thinking of like I remember watching it. I remember watching a Joe Wright film, and I was like, yeah. Actually, didn't Joe Wright do? Wasn't he involved in the Churchill one? Darkest Hour?
Yeah, Joe Wright did do Darkest Hour.
Darkest Hour. I think I'm thinking of Darkest Hour. That's what I'm thinking of. I remember watching that and going like his sensibilities are very like. It reminded me of Sam Mendes, like because you watch Skyfall and Skyfall's very like
that's right. Yeah, there was a lot of energy to it.
That kind of thing. Yeah, and so in terms of like the Englishness of it,
for sure.
I think Joe Wright definitely has that, which would be interesting, especially if you were to do like we're going back to what I was saying earlier. If you do like a sort of a very political Bond movie and you sort of cover things like Brexit, you'd want someone who has a real handle on English culture.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean? Yeah,
I don't know. I mean,
right. That's an interesting point. All right, let's see what else we got here. We have James Mangold, and Owen's out of left field pick is Alfonso Cuarón. I am a fan of Alfonso Cuarón. He's been like in the back of my head as like a director who I love to see tackle one, but I don't know if he'd ever get that opportunity or if he'd even ever take that opportunity.
I think he would definitely be offered. I don't know if he would take it. I would love that. Yeah, I would love that. And then he can put his thumbprint in both Harry Potter and James Bond, so he can conquer the British Isles, but in terms of the pop culture,
yeah, right, that's true.
They'll direct an episode of Doctor Who or something, and
yeah, I guess the best Harry Potter film. I guess it's only natural that he, has a shot at Bond to make the best Bond film.
You never know. I would love him to do one. I think I'm not going to bring anything to the discussion in terms of what makes him a great director, but he just has such a way of a spellbinding way of making films. He reminds me of a young Spielberg in the way he just kind of makes films that just entrance you. And I would and a young Spielberg wanted to do a Bond film, and that's one of my greatest what ifs.
Throw that in there.
If Spielberg had, I don't know if I want present day Spielberg to do one.
No, I don't either. But unfortunately, I mean, the man's great, but he's just
that's just not where his head is at right now as a filmmaker, which is totally fair. But one of my greatest what ifs is what if Spielberg had done one instead of Raiders. You know what I mean? And
yeah, that'd be interesting.
I feel like Alfonso Cuarón would be the closest we get to something like that, which is a really weird thing to say, but that's just the way I process it.
Yeah. No, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Alfonso Cuarón, James Mangold. What do you think of that? That's in the chat room.
That'd be interesting. It almost feels like almost a cliche to say like, well, it's Daniel Craig's swan song. Let's get the Logan guy and have him do a real sad
nose.
Yeah, not to say that he's only capable of making sad, reflective.
Westerns.
Yeah, like he's. I mean, he does make westerns really well, but he is capable of telling stories that aren't just the end of a man's career.
I wouldn't hate it. He's not my top choice, but I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah.
Oh crap! I had to.
Most if you list any like big director working right now, I'd be like, I would be interested to see that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Right.
Go ahead. You said.
Right. No. I was talking to our good friend Tyler earlier, and he threw out the name Damien Chazelle. Now I'm not 100% on board with this because I don't think he's necessarily in
jazz number in the middle of the movie.
Right, we'll have a jazz number. I mean, we'll see how First Man pans out, which I think is going to turn out to be terrific.
Oh,
but
I'm very excited about that. Yeah,
I don't know how he is able to tackle action. I also don't know how he is in kind of like the spy film genre. So there's a lot of like questions that arise with him, especially the action thing, given the fact that he's never directed action before. That would be my big concern. But then again, neither did Sam Mendes, and we saw how Skyfall turned out. So
it's true, yeah. Although Sam Mendes has had more of a career before he tackled Skyfall, you know what I mean?
True.
Like he'd been working for a long time.
Right. This will be like Damien Chazelle's third film, fourth if you count Guy and Madeline on a park bench. But I don't know. It's not my number one choice. I would be intrigued, but I don't think quite yet.
Yes, I agree. I think, although I do like the idea of getting a young director, like just an out of left field, like get someone who's just starting their career and say, do what you do. You know what I mean?
We've got more people saying Brad Bird. I'm glad you mentioned Brad Bird. We just talked about him. He is definitely a top choice for us. We just don't know whether or not we'd like him to do 25 or a Bond film later down the road. Zach also says Kenneth Branagh. What do you think of that?
Ooh, I kind of like that, actually.
That's a great choice.
I love that. I mean, and he'd be in it too, because
that's what he does. So he's the Bond villain.
Oh my god! Shit. And he kind of had he kind of did a test run as a Bond villain in Shadow Recruit, Jack Ryan.
Oh my god!
He played, and he was the best part of that movie. He was like the Russian villain.
He's the best part of every single movie he's in. Let's be real.
Absolutely. No, I would actually really like that. He's got a real sense of style. He's as long as there's not too many Dutch angles. But
I think that was just for Thor. It was just...
yeah. There are a few Dutch angles in Orient Express.
Okay, but like still, yeah, I agree. I mean,
it kind of works left on the
Kenneth Branagh is a great choice.
I hadn't considered that, but that's actually really cool.
He's British. He's he's a very very good director, and the off chance he decides to star in it, and he ends up being.
I want it, honestly. I just want it because he'll be in it, and I want to see that.
yeah, I agree. Okay, let's see who else we got here. Owen says David Mackenzie. Now he was a front runner for a while now. I think it was like him, Jan Demange, and then who was the other name? Was it Villeneuve?
Yeah, it was Villeneuve. Yeah.
Yeah, it was those three names were originally being circulated around as the front runners. David Mackenzie, I was really curious. He wasn't like my top choice out of those three, but like I think he proved himself with Hell or High Water. Outlaw King looks fantastic, so it shows that he can cross genres. So who knows? Maybe he could tackle a spy film, and he seems to really understand characters. So
absolutely, that's actually I really like that in terms of like if I was to choose, if we're gonna do like. If we're going to look at this movie as being Daniel Craig's swan song, it's his last film, and you gave me a pick, and you say, okay, we can go a Logan route, and you can get James Mangold, or we can go a Hell or High Water route. I would go with David Mackenzie over James Mangold in a heartbeat. I feel like that's probably more in line with what I would want from a Bond film.
I agree.
I hadn't thought about him since that story came out, because we kind of like mentioned him, and then it just became about
towards like the back of the list too, as far as like the front runners. Yeah,
it sort of became between Demange and Villeneuve after that. But
yeah.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that in forever, but yeah, that'd be awesome. I would love that, because he would definitely. He also works. One thing I like about him that I've noticed anyway is that, especially with Hell or High Water, he takes really good scripts and he really just like milks everything of substance, like thematic substance, character substance, out of the movie, like out of the script, and puts it all on the screen.
Yeah,
and I think that's what differentiates like a real artist, like an. That sounds really snobby, but like
very pretentious over there. The like sun goes down and Brody gets on his pretentious.
Welcome to Brody After Dark. Yeah, it's But
if you're just joining us, by the way, Brody got kicked out of his house, so he had to go outside to go live during this thing, which is a freaking.
That's a really dramatic telling of it, but yeah.
You said they intruded on you when you tried to record inside, and it was noisy.
Well, yeah.
And now we've got dogs.
There's a dog. Oh no, he's gonna barrel towards the thing. There he is.
Yeah,
oh, back. Get back. Oh well. Anyway. Anyways, yeah, continue. You continue talking because I'm dealing with the dog.
Right, you're dealing with the dog. But anyways, I don't know how many more names we could throw out there. Owen says Julius Ona, who did the Cloverfield Paradox. Outside choice. I think he could be good. Just kidding.
Very interesting.
Yes. But you know what?
What else has he done? What else has he done?
Honestly, I don't know, and I don't care. So
you don't want to check?
I really don't. So I think that's a good place to end it. Be sure to let us know who your picks are in the comment section below for who should direct Bond 25. Obviously, the news that Danny Boyle is leaving is disheartening, but at the same time, it kind of paves the way for someone new to come in and let the rumor mills begin, start the speculation, and all that good stuff. So
that's one thing I'm really not looking forward to is the rumor mill again. That's that's exhausting.
That's the disappointing part. I was really excited because we were getting tidbits from like actual production, but now we're gonna erase all that and just have to start back at square one. So be sure to just let us know your picks in the comments section below. Thanks for tuning into this live stream. If you're catching it on the replay, thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to this channel where we take on the best and worst of cinema on a weekly basis. Oh yeah. If you like Men vs. Movies, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter simply by searching Men vs. Movies. Brody, where can everyone find you?
People can find my hot takes at Brody Saravelli on Twitter. They're getting hotter and hotter by the day, so get on board with that.
You're not going to want to miss this. The takes are especially hot.
The second they announce who's directing this thing, I'm going to have like the hot as coal kind of take. So
oh my goodness. Well, and as always, guys, if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can always give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this live stream. And until next time, take care.